I want to share with you good news. About an hour ago, unbeknownst to any of you, or most of you, our church was honored in Fairfax County by Facet for our work with the homeless. Celebration, and of course, they're always going to hold these things on a Saturday, right? But Lucretia Pelham went for us to represent us there, where they were making special mention of us being willing to open our church up on Christmas week. I don't know about you guys, but I say we do it again. Who's in? Who says we do it again this Christmas? I'm gonna need a little bit more agreement. Who says we invite the homeless in again this Christmas? Oh, I'm so glad to get that agreement because I already told them we would. This is part of our mission, to remember the forgotten, to bring them to follow Jesus into forever. And when we do that, we will be beating with the heartbeat of Jesus. In all first quarter, we talked about knowing the heartbeat of Jesus. Today's sermon is called Joseph, Handling Betrayal and Forgiveness. I want to let that title sink in and set it up. Joseph, Handling Betrayal and Forgiveness. Because we're in the second quarter now, we're still talking about the heartbeat of Jesus, but we are talking about not knowing the heartbeat of Jesus, but feeling the heartbeat of Jesus. In our sermon series this month, starting right now, is Big Problems, Bigger Emotions. You know, it's often said, and you've heard it said, and you've probably said it yourself, there are only two things certain in life, and that is death and taxes. But I'm going to say problems. Big problems. So is there anyone's life that ever escapes a big problem? Thankfully, we don't always have big problems, and thankfully, we don't all have big problems at the same time. But we don't get out of this world without a big problem. And here's the thing about big problems. Big problems produce big emotions. And so we want to talk about that because it's good to have emotions. Question is, what emotions do we have? How do we manage them? And are our emotions, think about this for the whole next 4 sermons. When we have big problems and big emotions that go with it, are the emotions we're allowing ourselves to have pulling us out of sync with the heartbeat of Jesus, or syncing us in a rhythm with the heartbeat of Jesus? So today I'll talk about Joseph and betrayal and forgiveness, and next week Pastor Costa and I will tag team preach again because some of you guys like that, and we'll talk about Paul having reckless passion. There are times when passion can be reckless and destructive to the church. And then on Easter weekend, we'll talk about John and Mary and how you can have abandonment. That's a big emotion, even at the cross. And then we'll talk about Hannah in despair, in disappointment, when your life and family doesn't go the way you want. As we think about feeling the heartbeat of Jesus, we want to focus in on learning how to manage our emotions in our big problems or our big crises. And here's sort of a statement that sort of encompasses what we'll be talking about all month. Faith does not deny the storm. It anchors you through it. Big problems often awake big emotions, but even in chaos, we can feel the heartbeat of God steady near, and leading us with love. Now, maybe you come from a dysfunctional family. If you do, don't raise your hand. I'll raise my hand. Oh, I should raise both. My family, I know about dysfunctional families. But I still didn't have a dysfunctional family on the level of Joseph's. If anyone was set up to have a big problem in life, if anyone was set up to have an explosive emotional outburst, if anyone was set up to fail in life, it was Joseph. I mean, you would think by the list of his family that he comes from good stock, but let me just rethink that with you a minute. His great-grandfather was Abraham. His grandfather was Isaac. And his dad was Jacob. And by the way, Jacob literally translates as liar. Abraham, we call him the father of faith, but this is the man who tried to sell his wife away twice. This is the man that had a child with another woman. This is a man who threw out his second wife and child to die in the desert. This is a man who tried to sacrifice his own child. Isaac? Isaac had two children, Jacob and Esau. Couldn't decide how to execute the will. And Jacob betrayed his brother Esau. And this led to all kinds of problems. If we look at Joseph's immediate family, there are, surprise, 2 wives in Jacob's home, and a couple concubines along the way. Now, one thing we can see through the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Joseph is that more than one wife is not a good thing. And definitely more than one wife at once is not a good thing. So we have this problem where Rachel's the favorite, but then there's the children of Leah, and then there's the concubine's children. And this is the foundation of all Israel, the 12 tribes. Now, Joseph is a favorite. Oh, boy. The other thing we learn all the way back to Abraham, through Isaac, and through Jacob is favorite. Listen, parents, don't have favorites. I know you do. Don't let them know you do. I know it. You know it. You're like, no, I don't. Yeah, yes, I do. Don't let them know it. See, when you have multiple wives and concubines and affairs, then you have all these children. We might call them legitimate or illegitimate now, but they're all competing for a place in the home, and so were the children competing with whose mom was more important. And the thing is, Rachel was the only one who was loved. Because despite what some men think, they can't love more than one person. And Joseph was the firstborn of the woman Jacob loved. And Benjamin was the secondborn of the woman Jacob loved. Now, I don't know, Joseph to me is the perpetual teenager, and I say that as my kid is about to turn 13 this year. He's full of dreams. He's full of dreams and not sure about his identity. What do I mean by that? He's full of dreams. He is always literally dreaming and putting his whole worth into whatever he can dream. And I want to tell you something, that sometimes it doesn't stop in teenagehood. Sometimes it continues as we're adults. Sometimes our identity is not tied up in who Jesus says we are, but our identity is actually tied up in some dream we have of what we think our importance is. It would be a habit throughout Joseph's life that he would always be a dreamer. He would always be having dreams, interpreting dreams, and living by the dream. One thing I hope we learn from Joseph's life is we may have many dreams, and many of our dreams will be profitable. But some of our dreams are not. And knowing when to let go of a non-profitable dream is the emotional intelligence of having a heartbeat that beats with Jesus. See, Joseph's dreams got him into trouble. He had this wonderful dream. Like this is just such a typical teenager dream. He dreamed that all of his brothers were going to come and bow down before him. And since dad and mom always gave him favoritism and they gave him this coat of many colors and set him apart from his brothers, in his dream, he even saw his mother and father as the moon and the stars bowing down before him. Was it a dream from God? Or a dream from his ego? This is what it means to be with the heartbeat of Jesus. This is what it means to feel the heartbeat of Jesus. To be able to discern, to be able to pray, to be able to seek God and determine, is this dream I have of my ego? Or from God. And it might be that what you think is from your ego is from God. And it might be what you think is from God is from your ego. And when you get it wrong, your brothers and sisters are not so happy with you. How would you feel if the second youngest of your family, now, by the way, how many is the family, how many siblings altogether? 12. A little known fact. My mother had 11 siblings, which made her family 12. That's a lot of egos. And a lot of people competing for whatever resources, whatever love, whatever support is in the family. And I know from watching my mother's life that actually can leave children growing up starved for approval. Joseph, the perpetual adolescent, could not let go of his dream. And what we learn is sometimes when we can't let go of our dream, it throws us in a pit. So his brothers ganged up on him. His brothers bullied him. His brothers threw him in a pit along the road. They were going to murder him. That was their intent. That's the level of dysfunction in his family. The plan was to murder him. They had it all planned out. They were going to take his coat that his father had got him with many colors, because everybody would know it's definitely his, because there's only one coat like that, because only one dad would play favoritism that much to have a coat of many colors, because dye cost so much money in the ancient world. They were going to take his coat, give it to a bear or a wild animal to play with, and put some blood on it, and take it back to Dad. And say an animal killed him, but the animal was going to be them. When suddenly, unexpected allies. Now here's what I want you to hear. Unexpected allies saved Joseph's life. Who were they? Children of Leah. Remember, there's Leah, there's Rachel, and there's the concubine children. No one's going to count the concubine children. You know what they say about those children. We don't use that word here. But Leah's and Rachel's children are forever competing. But Reuben in Judah stood up to save his life that day. Now listen. It didn't mean it was going to be okay. It didn't mean it was going to turn out like Joseph wanted. It did mean he wasn't going to die. And what I want to tell you is that when the unexpected ally shows up in your life, you don't get to determine how they save you. You need to be glad that they came to save you. In Genesis 37:22, it says, "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness. Don't lay a hand on him," Reuben said. He said this to rescue him from them and to take him back to his father. Sometimes the people that show up to rescue you don't get to rescue you the way they wanted to either. What was Reuben's plan? To throw him in the pit so that he could come back later, get him out, and save him. But before he got a chance, Judah said to his brothers who were bent on killing him, "No, don't. What will we gain if we kill our brother?" Cover up his blood. Come, let us, sell him to Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our what? Don't treat your brothers that way. I know he's saving him. He is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed that they would make him a slave instead of killing him. And so off he went to Egypt. And you know the story. He went from the pit to the prison to the palace. For those who don't know the story, he was sold as a slave to the Ishmaelites, and they sold him to Potiphar in Egypt. And Potiphar made him the grand servant, the butler, the head of his estate, and some allegations got made against him. He got accused of being a little Harvey. Thought people might get that, but guess not. But it wasn't true. He found himself in prison. Thanks, Reuben. Thanks, Judah. I want you to know something too. Like, sometimes the problems people have, and sometimes when people find themselves in really bad situations, like sometimes when people find themselves in places like prison or worse, they may have been set up for that from life. We should be very careful of what assumptions we make about people. And when we find people in bad situations, we should not assume we know their story. He just gets out of the pit. He just gets established. He just gets a role where he's doing well. And he's accused of a heinous crime. From the pit to the prison. And he's such a dreamer. Got nothing but dreams, this kid. And so, when the baker, who was also in prison, and the cupbearer, who was also in prison, started to tell Joseph about their dreams, he was like, "Dreams? Sign me up. Tell me about your dreams. I love dreams." Were they from God? Were they from Joseph? Were they from the baker? Were they from the cup holder? I don't know, but he didn't learn any more tact than he had with his brothers, let me tell you that. So he says to the baker, "You're dead in 3 days." Way to win friends and influence people. Someone should have gave him Dale Carnegie's book. But he says to the cupbearer, "In 3 days, you're out of here." And the cupbearer says, "I will remember you when I get to the palace." From the pit to the prison to the palace, not yet. The cupbearer forgot him. Big problems, bigger emotions. A dysfunctional family, multiple moms, siblings who can't stand each other, a history of fathers trying to kill their children. No wonder the brothers tried to kill the brother. Sold into slavery, lied on and imprisoned, and then, when promised he would be released, forgotten. There is a storm brewing in this young man. Sometimes we see a young man or a young lady in trouble. And I want to tell you, the storm has been brewing for a long, long time. Thank goodness for Joseph that there were more dreams in Egypt. And the Pharaoh started to have really weird dreams about fat cows and skinny cows. And the Pharaoh became very troubled by his dreams about fat cows and skinny cows. And he sensed that something was going to happen. And why he was troubled one day, that cupbearer was just going by. This was years later. That cupbearer is just going by. And the Pharaoh was like, if only someone could tell me what these fat cows and skinny cows, I think in one translation it says ugly cows, are about. Suddenly the cupbearer goes, I know the guy. And just like that, Joseph goes from the pit, from the prison, to the palace. And he tells the Pharaoh, the 7 fat cows represent 7 good years in the land. And we should stockpile the food, and we should prepare for the famine. And the 7 skinny or ugly cows represent 7 years of famine. And we need to stockpile enough so that we get through it. And as that very thing began to happen, the Pharaoh became very pleased with Jacob and made him prime minister, or Joseph, and made him prime minister over everything. And when the famine hit, his brothers were starving. No one else had the cow dream. No one else prepared. So they made their way, where do you think? To Egypt. They find themselves ushered into a room with the prime minister, or second in charge, Joseph. Here's the thing. He's all dressed up like an Egyptian. He's got like Pharaoh-like clothes on. He's like second in charge. They haven't seen him since he was a little scrawny kid in a pit. And now he's a grown man. And they don't even recognize their own brother. But he knows exactly who they are. Now let me paint the picture. Let me put the cards on the table for you. The very people who threw him in the pit. The very people who plotted to kill him. The very people who were responsible for his time in prison, because that's why he was in Egypt. The very people who did all this, now they stand right before him. Begging him to provide for them. Man, what a great revenge plot. And he didn't miss a beat. He looked right at his brothers, looked them in the eye, knowing he knew who they were, but they didn't know who he was. He looked them right in the eye. Knowing who they were. Knowing who they were. He lies on them. You're spies. You have just come here to see how much food we have so that you can come back with an army and attack us. You are spies. We should arrest you and have you tried for treason. No. We brought money. We brought goods. We just want to trade. Our dad is back home. You have to understand. And a brother Benjamin's back home, and he's going to starve to death. And this is our last. You are spies. I should call the Pharaoh and his guards right now. Then he asks a weird question. Where's the youngest one? Who's the youngest one? Remember? Rachel's other child. You know why he asked that question? He wants to see if the favoritism is still going on. He wants to see if the dysfunction is still going on. He wants to see if the dysfunction is still going on. So he says, bring me your youngest brother. And they're like, Dad, we'll never. And he keeps Simeon and imprisons him. Said, he ain't going home unless you bring me the youngest. He wants to see if there's any change. The sad truth is, there's not. When Joseph was assumed dead, Jacob took up treating Benjamin just like he treated Joseph. And I want to tell you about that for a minute. Dysfunction is hard to break. It takes years of prayer. It takes years of hard work. It takes years of therapy. But it is worth it. Because they find themselves standing before Joseph with nothing to offer. Still being the same dysfunctional mess they were from the beginning. He has no reason. No. What I would probably do, maybe I shouldn't say what I would do. I shouldn't, but what I would do. I would take Benjamin and save him and send the rest on their own. Why shouldn't he just be like Abraham, who threw Ishmael to the curb? Why shouldn't he be like Isaac, who favored Esau over Jacob? Why shouldn't he be like Jacob, who carried the family tradition of multiple wives and favoritism? Why shouldn't he continue the dysfunction? The only one full blood to him is Benjamin. Joseph says, come close to me. And as he's saying that, I hear in his voice, you still can't see me. You never saw me. You never cared enough to recognize who I really was. You only saw the coat of many colors. You only saw the dreams. You only saw the way Dad showed me favoritism. But you never saw me. Get up in my face. Look close at me. How can you be my flesh and blood sitting here begging me to save you? You don't even recognize me. When they had done so, he said, you still can't see it. I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. That, my friends, is a death sentence. They're in the Pharaoh's palace before the Pharaoh's prime minister, who is judge, jury, and executioner. He let them leave once. They came back with the same pitiful excuses. They still can't even recognize who he is. I have a question. Are there people in your life who need to be recognized that you are not seeing? Come closer. People need to be seen. And the cost of not seeing who people really are is the cost of beating out of sync with the heartbeat of Jesus, because Jesus sees who everybody is at all times with every beat of their heart. I am sure the brothers probably could use a bathroom break about now. Imagine. Do I feel good my brother's alive? Or am I horrified on who he is? And I am caught red-handed. Then, look at what's going on here. Look carefully. What did I tell you? Breaking the cycle of dysfunction is very hard. He threw his arms around his brother, who? Benjamin. He might go my direction after all. And he wept, embracing him and weeping. There are 12 kids. One rules Egypt. The other just got saved. There are 10 terrified people standing in the background. Big problems, bigger emotions. And when you have big problems, there's going to be big emotions. The question is, what do you do with those big emotions? Do you fall back to your dysfunctional patterns and continue the dysfunction that you came out of? Favoritism. Or do you move past it and beat with the heartbeat of Jesus? He fell on Benjamin and he wept. And then he kissed all his brothers. Wept over them. And afterwards, his brothers talked with him. Dad came down. They had a good old family meeting. How do you make peace when what has happened is so evil? How do you make peace when what has happened is so wrong? How do you sit down for Passover again with those who tried to murder you and sold you into a life of slavery? And how do you set up a new life together in a new land? It comes down to this. Will you mistreat others the way they mistreat you? Big problems, bigger emotions. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Not do unto others as they mistreated you, you mistreat them. Will you mistreat others just because they mistreated you? Will you look at their actions feel the heartbeat of Jesus in the room? For he could have said, Dad's an old man. Benjamin's mine. Off with their heads. But this is what he said. As for you, you meant it. You meant evil what? Against me. Look what he's saying. He's not wrong. What did they mean? Listen, he's not giving them a pass. By the way, don't give people a pass. Forgiveness is not giving a pass. Forgiveness is holding people accountable and then treating them better than they deserve. He doesn't give them a pass. Listen, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. To bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today, meaning with the supplies of Egypt. Now, I am sure God would have got the message to Pharaoh somehow. I am sure Joseph could have been passing through town. I don't know. It didn't have to be the pit, the prison, and the palace. But what I love about Joseph is he does not deny his big emotions. He just focuses them in the right place. And the right place for his big emotions is not on his brothers, but on his God. Because if it was on his brothers, they deserve to have their head rolled. And he ain't lying about it. They meant it for evil. But God, let it happen, another way of saying it. because he knew they were evil. And we serve a God who takes people's evil and turns it into good. So they would all be a family again. We need to choose. We need to choose to see the good that God is doing. We need to choose to see the good that God is doing. It is very easy to assign evil to people. You know why it's very easy to assign evil to people? People are generally evil, even when they don't mean to be. But God is in the business of taking what people mean for evil and using it for good. Betrayal and forgiveness starts and ends at taking your eyes off the betrayer and putting them on the one who forgives, God. It was God that took him from the pit to the prison to the palace. Faith does not deny the pit. Faith does not deny the prison. Faith will take you, though, to the palace. Faith does not deny the storm. It anchors you through it. Big problems often will awaken big emotions, but even in the chaos, we can feel the heartbeat of God steady, near, and always